Welcome to We in Lewes, a podcast dedicated to celebrating the remarkable, creative, and energetic people who live in Lewes and are helping our community forge a collective soul as appealing as it is unique. These are their stories in their words. They are the We in Lewes. I'm your host, Kevin McGinnis. Today marks the beginning of our fourth season, a milestone we pass with more than a little astonishment, given that when we started, Steve and I were unburdened by any knowledge or experience with podcasting. Fortunately, it appears Mark Twain may have been right when he observed, sometimes the secret to getting ahead is just getting started. To celebrate this most minor accomplishment, we thought it would be appropriate to invite someone who actually knows something about celebrating, albeit important things, like the 250th anniversary of these United States. Mary Alice Kelly is the committee chair of Lewes 250, whose goal is to celebrate and share the full legacy of the American Revolution and how it has continued to shape our community in the first town in the first state. Many of you may know Mac, as she prefers to be called, from her work with the DAR's Colonel David Hall chapter in Lewes, as well as her work as a genealogist, executive, and historian. She also brings a level of energy to our recording studio we've not experienced since Heidi Lowe had a drink here by herself. You can often find her at the Mall House on Pilottown Road, which originally was built in 1739 by Samuel Painter and provides a glimpse of the home life of its former residents, who were river pilots and farmers. Today's episode is brought to you by the sister restaurants Kindle and Half Full, located in the heart of downtown Lewes. With their beloved menu, American fare with a French influence for Kindle, and gourmet pizza and wine at Half Full, and so much more, they are busy year-round. Keep an eye out for their specials, like Tuesday Moules Frites Night at Kindle or Wednesday's Wine Night at Half Full, where if you buy a bottle of wine, you get a free pizza. How great is that? Both restaurants provide personal, intimate dining and, not surprising given the ambience and fare, they're always busy. Mac, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm really honored to be here.
What was the origin of Lewes 250?
Well, there was a meeting called last January at the Lewes Library, and it was just for all of the nonprofits and businesses in town to get together and see what we could do, put Lewes on the map with regard to the 250th anniversary of our country. You know, Lewes is actually almost 400 years old. I know you know that. But we felt that as the first town in the first state, it was really important to make an impact in what this celebration of our independence means. So I just attended that meeting as a representative of DAR. There were probably 45 or 50 different people who attended.
And was this sort of a city-sponsored initiative, or was this a community-sponsored one?
The honest answer is I don't recall. I just know that my chapter regent, Beth Bowersock, for the Colonel David Hall chapter, is still working and was not able to attend. So she asked me if I would go in her place. But
you are on the website, the city's website, for example. You're very much part of their activities.
It is definitely an initiative through the city, yes.
So tell us a little bit about the three broad initiatives of the organization.
Well, I think it's to enlighten, educate, celebrate, and awareness of where we've been, where we're going. I think the best thing for me is that through these fun activities that people are really learning about the history of this country in a way that they've never kind of recognized it before. Did I miss one?
No, you got them all. You got them all. Very well. I also think, is this mostly focused on the Revolutionary War period?
We're trying very hard not to have it exclusively based on the Revolutionary War period. I mean, certainly the anniversary is 250 years, 1776. That's what it is. But we thought it was important to acknowledge all of the aspects of how Lewes has contributed to this country over the entire 250 years. That was really important to us. And to acknowledge a lot of the underrepresented people who perhaps never got recognized for their contributions here. So
I think that it's sometimes forgotten that we associate Lewes with the Revolutionary period, the War of 1812, for all the obvious reasons.
Certainly.
But it also has one of the most amazing integration stories.
It does indeed.
Back when the former mayor was so involved in integrating this community and its workforce. Mm-hmm. It has a fascinating quarantine story in where people who came to this country, emigrated here, didn't go through Ellis Island, but ended up in quarantine down here. As a matter of fact, my brother did a whole lot of research at one point, and one of our family members came to the United States through the wharf out in what's now Cape Henlopen Park.
Right.
And there's so many other aspects with World War II. We've had a previous guest who talked about a history of Lewes and World War II. I don't think most of us know. Right. And it is sort of still buried a bit under the sand at Cape Henlopen State Park. But they were involved through the Vietnam War.
Right.
So there's a great and diverse history here that exceeds just that one kind of colonial period, if you will.
Right. And I'm learning more and more about that history every day with all the people I meet. It's remarkable what has happened here. I've been describing Lewes as a vortex of attraction of these people who are so amazingly talented and all of this history. And there's something really so special here and magical in this city that I don't think you find anywhere else.
What are some of the events you'll be sponsoring or have already sponsored this year?
Well, we have had, it's only early January, and we have had 3 fabulous successes. The first one, and wonderful thanks to the Lightship Overfalls and specifically Shook, who I'm not allowed to call him Dave, Shook. And
Dave has been a guest on this podcast, and we all have learned it. He gets actually pretty nasty if you call him Dave.
But he really, this was his brainchild, where he put together, at the request of the mayor, she thought it would be really nice to have a family-oriented event for New Year's Eve. So he came up with this, said, let's do 7 p.m. It's the same time as midnight in Lewes, England. And so we'll have a big family event. We'll have popcorn and hot chocolate. We'll do a contest where kids can come up on deck and blow the foghorn or help drop the anchor. There were probably 500 people there.
Really?
It was remarkable. So that was number one. Then the next day, a lot of us convened at the corner of 2nd and Market Streets outside St. Peter's Episcopal Church, ringing bells at 10 a.m. to ring in the new year. I know that the churches, the fire department, the Lightship, they were all ringing their bells at 10 a.m. in the city to just acknowledge how special this year is. Then we went inside and were just awed with a wonderful performance by the St. Peter's Handbell Choir, as well as the Sodello Brass Quintet, who just knocked it out of the park. It was so uplifting and such a wonderful way to begin the celebration of this new year. It was amazing. And my thanks to St. Peter's Episcopal Church and Reverend Jeff for making this possible. The third event was January 10th, which was a very important day for the Revolution because of the date of the publication of Thomas Paine's Common Sense. So one of our Lewes 250 committee members, Ron Collins, reached out to Congressman Jamie Raskin, from Maryland, and at the 11th hour, he committed to come, and we had about 500 people come to the high school where he spoke about Thomas Paine's Common Sense on January 10th, the actual date, the anniversary of the publication. It was so special. It was remarkable and a really pivotal publication to change people's opinions about what they should do. It really moved a lot of loyalists across the divide to see why they needed to support independence.
It also, you will find Thomas Paine's language in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Mm-hmm. So remarkable man who seemed to use his writing not only to inspire people, to help people think differently, but he really upset a lot of people over some of the books he published, that by the end, he was not a well-liked man here in the country.
Right. And just as a side note, we had a very little time to pull that Jamie Raskin event together, and my extreme thanks go out to the Lewes Public Library, Rebecca Lowe especially, and Jill DiPaolo and their teams, David White, for pulling this thing together really quickly. We had to relocate from Lewes Public Library. We had 160 people register for the event because the schools were closed when we found out that Jamie Raskin was coming. We couldn't even get in touch with anybody to see if that venue was available. So we had to turn on a dime, but it was sold out in like 24 hours at the library with a waiting list of 350 people. Like, bang. So kudos to them and everybody involved, the people at the high school. I mean, it was just a wonderful event.
And I think some people don't realize that Congressman Raskin, because of everything that's gone on, he has a security detail that is as complicated as a presidential campaign. I mean,
was that part. I learned so much about how to sponsor or host somebody of that caliber notoriety. Absolutely.
Right, because you were using the electronic screens and people were going through metal detectors and so on.
We had scanners. We just had the wands, I guess is what they're referred to get people into the event. And people were very patient, and I want to thank them for that because it took, we had to start 30 minutes late, but we decided we were not going to start the program until everybody was in the building. And we could have been in England because the rain was just gushing. It was teeming rain, and these people stood outside in line for so long. So there's a hunger here for this process, this education, this knowledge that is overwhelming. And I want to try to continue with the committee to tap into that.
Because you have talks coming up on other topics. I mean, not just the Revolutionary period, but you have some on the quarantine. What was the quarantine? I think you also have some involving some of the interesting things have occurred via integration here, including Ship Carpenter Square and what it used to be.
There's one February 21st, I think the date is, without looking at my calendar. I have to look at my phone every night before I go to bed to see what am I doing tomorrow because it's been that busy. But I believe it's the 21st. This used to be my playground is going to be the theme, and we're going to have the Lewes African American Heritage Commission and others who are going to be talking about that.
Is there a Liberty tree planting?
There is a Liberty tree planting. There's a semi-quincentennial tree planting. There's Nectar is doing dinners from January, the 26th of every month from January to May in 50-year increment themes, 1776, 1826, 1876. You can finish the math. And each one will have, different menu. Nectar never is open for dinner. So this is really a special thing. And Lisa McDonald is really working hard on this, but it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah, there's so many things we have going on. In April, we have a 5K walk run that's going to start at the Johnny Walker Beach. And then at the end, we're going to come back and celebrate there. We're going to be acknowledging volunteers from the city, as among other things. In May 30th, it's a month with a blue moon. So we're going to have a once in a blue moon event at the American Legion Pavilion. June 16th, the Coastal Concerts is going to be doing a program at Stango Park of All American Music. And there's so many events that are planned. It's just what you really need to do. And what I often do is log into lewes250.com and check their calendar. Check the calendar. If you're looking for something to do, here you go. This is what's going on this weekend. Here you go. Historic Lewes constantly has events going on. I mean, and I get my inspiration really from them a lot often in terms of what kind of things they've got going and how we can continue the excitement in addition to that.
So I'm contractually obligated to ask you about their role since I'm on the board, but they've been very, as I understand, you've been able to use and be involved with some of their events, like First Friday and so on. Is that right?
They've been so supportive, and in fact, we're going to be, setting up tables at the events to get people information about them. They've been specifically very kind to the DAR chapter, who owns the Mall House, because we're not part of the historic Lewes campus, but they have been wonderful in helping us to come up with ideas on how to make it more accessible to the community. Many of the people in Lewes don't know anything about this house, the Mall House. I just met with somebody there yesterday who said, I've lived here 10 years. I had a boat at the Pilottown Marina. I had no idea that this house was here. So I've driven past it a million times. So one of the goals for my chapter is to put the Mall House on the map in Lewes, because it is, as you mentioned earlier, it's such a big part of the maritime history here, with Luke Shields, who was a river pilot, who married the widow Mall from next door, who brought her children to the house, and 3 of the sons were river pilots as well. One was a shipbuilder. Her husband, John Mall, had also been a river pilot, and she was related to Nehemiah Field, also. So that maritime history, and I've been kind of working with Andrew Leiter to see about maybe long-term, before the 400th, putting together a maritime trail, perhaps, once the Maritime Museum is completed. Andrew, don't kill me for saying that out loud.
And the Mall House is actually located on the property where it was originally built. Is that right?
Yes, it's one of 2 homes that I know of. We like to say it's the second oldest home in Lewes that is on its original foundation. Yeah. So.
And the DAR, to its credit, they were the ones who not only took over the property but paid for the restoration. Is that correct?
Yes. So in the 1950s, I believe the Malls bought the house from the estate of Luke Shields back in like the 1840s. It passed back into the Mall family, which is why it's called the Mall House and not the Shields House or the Painter House, whatever. And then from there, it was sold to the White Packing Company, and the White Packing Company was going to tear it down. And the DAR chapter caught wind of that and said, no, please don't do that. This is a very historic home and important, to our community. So they rented the house back for $1 a year from the White Packing Company while the daughters worked preparing roast beef dinners at the high school and collecting S&H green stamps, and came up with $10,000. Now, an S&H green stamps book is worth $2. So, took a lot of that. And of course, donations from the community and the daughters themselves. And they finally cleared their mortgage, I think in the later in the 60s. But it's a pretty remarkable story, of the will of these women. So, and then they restored it. It kind of sat for a while, but most recently we have done a big renovation in what was the kitchen. Started out, looked like it was going to be a $15,000 project and ended up being well over $115,000, because behind every wall is a nightmare if you've ever owned an older home.
How can people get involved with what you're doing?
If you send an email to info@lewes250.com, they all come to me. So I'm fielding all of those.
The staff isn't that big.
It's
right?
not that big. If you have an idea, if you have something you think would elevate our events in some way, if you just want to volunteer, those are opportunities that are there. So we're open to any and all involvement from the community. We want this to be a community event.
It's interesting because I think when we first talked, it was some time ago last year, and there weren't that many events on the calendar. And now the calendar is chock full.
It's pretty robust.
And it's really a testament to you that how fast it's grown.
Well, thank you. But it's really the whole team that's doing this. And I think we all have our strengths. It's amazing how this kind of fell together. I think that all the strengths that we bring complement each other so well. You know, like we've got the Greater Lewes Foundation and Mike Roll with the fundraising efforts, and we've got Terry Malefsky with her incredible event planning, Susan Hyde, who does our newsletter, Stephanie Ripper, who does, and while she's not on the steering committee, she certainly is a major part of this, and she built our website, which is fantastic in my opinion. Betsy Reamer, who from the chamber, who knows where all the bodies are buried in this town, and the inimitable Tina Brown Hicks. I mentioned Ron Collins already, Andrew from Historic Lewes, who brings so much knowledge. And if I've forgotten somebody, my apologies, but I think that's them. Oh, I did. Amy Marasco, who inspires me every day. She is such a motivator for me to get out of bed every morning and go do this work. It's wonderful.
Mac, you've been involved in a lot of organizational and corporate programs during your career. A year from now, what do you hope Lewes 250 will have accomplished?
I see nonprofits working together in these events, and I hope that conversation continues. I hope that they continue to reach out to each other, work together, have this, I hate this word, synergy. When I was in business, synergy was always the kiss of death. But if I could,
I had a rule that if I was in a meeting, I had a rule that if I was in a meeting when I used to work in a corporate setting, and people used either the word synergy or robust, I would walk out.
Oh, I'm 2 for 2. I think that is the biggest thing that we're seeing, and how people really, I hope that some of these events will continue. I hope that Shook will continue to have the 7 p.m. anchor drop for the families. I hope that there will be special events around whatever cause people want to pull together. And I'm, my background's in the music industry. I really hope to bring music to everything that we're doing. That's my goal. So.
Who's Colonel David Hall?
Oh, Colonel David Hall is a very important person in the city of Lewes. He was born here. He raised his family here. He was fought in the Revolution. And when John Haslett was killed in action, then David Hall replaced him. Colonel David Hall was injured at a battle in, I think it was Germantown. And after that, he did not go back into the field, but he was here. He was involved in the community in a big way. Lewes Presbyterian Church. He fell out of favor with George Washington when he did not go back into the field because of his injuries. But he ultimately became the governor of Delaware. I'm not really sure why the chapter chose Colonel David Hall specifically as the name, but if you look at the names of all of our chapters in this state, except for Cooch's Bridge, they're all named for some patriot. Fortunately, we have 2 that are named for women, which makes me happy, which is the Mary Vining chapter in Seaford and the Battelle and Reed chapter up in Newcastle.
Tell us a little about the genealogical services the DAO offers.
Well, if you believe you have a lineage back to a patriot, and our definition of patriot does not require military service. It could be someone who donated supplies, made uniforms, made ammunition, paid supply tax, any of those kinds of things. But if you have an interest and you can come to us with that interest, we can start to research whether or not you have a line. And if you do, we'll work with you to prove it. But our work with you requires that you have a desire to join our group. It's not a free genealogical service, but our chapter did buy the Ancestry platform for the Lewes Public Library. And we do work with the Sussex County Genealogical Society in having workshops there for people who just have a general interest in genealogy.
If you're looking back at the 50s and the 60s, the DAR did not always have a reputation as being open to the entire diversity of the United States. That seems to have changed. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened?
Well, I think it began in 1939 when Marian Anderson was denied the right to perform in Constitution Hall at the DAR building. And they've pretty much regretted that decision ever since it was made. We recognize, and actually our entire history, it's ugly. History's messy. It's not, we've come from such a point, and we're getting smarter as we go along. I don't think we're there yet, but we're certainly moving in that direction. So I just want to share with you that relating specifically to the Marian Anderson event, we have come out with a statement about that some years ago that our organization truly wishes that history could be rewritten, but knowing that it cannot, we are proud to note that DAR has learned from the past. They welcomed Marian Anderson to Constitution Hall on a number of occasions soon after 1939, including a benefit concert for war relief in 1943. It's also meaningful to us that this notable American chose Constitution Hall as the place where she would launch her Farewell American Tour in 1964. So I'm not going to bore you with the rest of the official statement, but it's kind of like all of history. There was slavery. There were horrible things that happened. Women never had the right to vote. We've been second-class citizens. I mean, it's only been 100 years that we counted as anything. So we couldn't own property. African Americans couldn't own property. History is messy. Our background is messy. And we, I think, as a people, need to learn and recognize that we're getting better. We're getting smarter. We have to be willing to forgive some of those horrible transgressions. I mean, they were horrible and nobody denies that. But we're never going to get over them until we move through them. And I just feel like part of the Lewes 250 is that's the reason why we want to make sure that everyone is represented in what we're doing. For example, the Once in a Blue Moon event, that's about the African American club called Happy Day Club that was here in town. A lot of people never knew about that 40% population of Lewes was African American back in the day. So as far as DAR, yes, we have an initiative called the 250 for the 250, and we're trying to find 250 African Americans, Native Americans, and women who have gone unrecognized who would qualify as patriots for our society. The bigger problem with that for DAR is records. Sadly, men often, when they wrote their wills, never even acknowledged the wife by name. Enslaved people, African Americans, were not acknowledged by any name or by James. It's difficult to trace that. We have the best intentions. We want that, but sometimes your hands are tied. So yes, we are working in that direction, and we want to acknowledge the efforts of everyone, and we want to invite them to come and join the chapter if there's a chance that they can do that.
So the DAR's story, where at one point it was racist, and you all have learned and evolved and moved forward. Is that part of the same sort of story you're trying to tell with the Lewes 250 committee, that our history is a story in part, doesn't mean it's all perfect now, but in part it's a story of education and evolution, so that today we are not repeating some of the horrible mistakes, the horrible transgressions, as you said, that occurred in the past. And to do that, you have to recognize them and not hide from them.
Agreed. And we want people to be aware of them. And that's part of the education process. Absolutely. I hope that people will come to the Lewes 250 events that suit them, that they want to participate in. And there's going to be lots of celebrating. There's still going to be, fireworks and picnics and parades and all of the fun part of it. We want it to be celebratory, but we also want it to be one that acknowledges the messy parts of our history as well as the joyful ones.
And this celebration that you're responsible for doesn't stop on July 4th. Is that right? It continues through the whole year?
Yes, through the whole year. Right now, our last big event will be September 19th at Canal Front Park. We're going to do a Broadway in the Park event. Still coming together, so I can't give you a lot of the details, but it's, family-oriented, free event. We're hoping to have, Broadway music there and some games and things for kids or people walking around in costumes from the various, I don't know, you want to be the Lion King? You could be the lion, Kevin. We'll put you in a suit.
If I remember correctly, I have to sing. And if you know me, you don't want that.
But so, and have opportunities for people to just gather and really celebrate. Then after that, there are continue to be events of music and speaker series, et cetera, that would be able to, have through the end of December. But I think it mostly is going to wind down after that September 19th event.
So when you suddenly found yourself in charge of this effort, how did you take it from an idea that's being tossed around and turn it into something like it is today, which is, I have a feeling the programs that will have occurred in Lewes over this year are going to be much more diverse and much greater in number than we can see today.
Many, many, many meetings, many, many, many phone calls and emails and connections with people. The best part of this job, I just have to say, has been the wonderful people that I have met in this community. It's really been fabulous. And people want to be engaged. They want to do this. So that has been the biggest help. I think that Betsy Reamer says I'm going to hate her by the end of the year because she threw me under the bus, if you will. At the beginning, I would wake up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat going, oh my God, what have I done? But then I get to now, and I'm loving every minute of this. This is just the greatest adventure of my retired life. Let's put it that way.
You grew up in Massachusetts, is that right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I started in southern Indiana until I was 10, and then we reverse migration. We went the other way and came back to the coast and moved to Lexington, Massachusetts.
So you grew up in Lexington.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you were exposed at a very young age
and
to
that's where
history of the United States.
I think that's where this madness of history love comes for me, because every time anyone came, we were constantly walking the Freedom Trail in Boston. We were going to all of the Hancock Clark House in Lexington. We were down at the Battle Green. We were, it was just part of your daily life there. So, and fun.
So how did you get from there into the music industry?
I answered an ad in the newspaper, and they put me into this secretarial position, and I slowly worked my way up. I worked for the marketing coordinator and the sales manager. My first day on the job, I went to lunch with the Staples singers. I was like, oh yeah, this is where I want to be. Oh yeah.
Now, where was this?
In the Boston area. The office was in Woburn, Massachusetts. So
And what was the company?
WEA, Warner Electra Atlantic Corporation. So we had like 21 different labels. We were releasing new music every Tuesday. Was something would drop, and it was a lifestyle. It was not just a job. I mean, it was a lot because you were out at shows. You were working with ultimately working with your customer base, doing in stores, meet and greets. So that's sort of all that where I ultimately ended up as the sales manager in the Mid Atlantic region. It sort of prepared me for this job where I have to keep a lot of plates spinning and I have to, organize and manage a lot of threads.
So if you're the sales manager in a region of the United States for 21 recording labels, what does that mean?
Well, the labels would sort of determine what were their priority projects that they wanted to be working and lay that out for you. They would had an advertising budget that you would implement. They would transfer the funds. But then additionally, you would have your own pot of money, local funds that, let's say some radio station had an interest in playing this one song, then you could start to feed it by buying end caps in the music stores or getting other things, buying display pieces or really promoting things in a way. So you had a team of salespeople, inventory specialists, display clerks, promotion staff who were out going and they had the real sales job. In my opinion, the promotion people who were out there, because their competition were all the other labels who were also trying to get their product played, radio play. But that was really what you did. You had to kind of keep track of all these different projects, have budgets for each one of them, and manage your team for these are the priorities. This is what we're going to do. Do you make sure that there's this inventory? Go pick up, Mavis Staples and deliver her to, such and so. There was a lot. It was always changing. It was very fast paced.
Who were some of the musicians you represented?
Well, the labels, anybody on Warner Brothers, Electra Atlantic. So Eric Clapton, Madonna, Rod Stewart, Linda Ronstadt, the Eagles, Led Zeppelin. I'm going through the labels. Warner, Electra, Asylum, Jackson Browne. Atlantic, Led Zeppelin. Meeting Ahmet Ertegun was an unbelievable high point for me, as well as Mo Austin at Warner. I mean, it was remarkable.
So you had one of the coolest jobs of a generation.
I think so.
In today's world, it's hard to remember that you had to do things like buying end caps, that you had to do things to move music.
Yeah.
It wasn't online.
Right. Okay.
It wasn't a digital library that contained every song ever made.
Right.
It's really a gone area, but it must have been fascinating and took a lot of hard work. Is that right?
It did. It took a lot of hard work. We had huge warehouses with forklifts, picking up boxes of LPs and cassettes and moving them and shipping them. We had 13 sales offices across the country and 5 distribution centers. So it was a lot. It did take a lot. And trying to convince the buyers at all these record stores that yours was the next big hit, or at radio that you really got to get behind this and push it. It was a challenge, absolutely. So I personally had a collection of over 2,000 albums that I sold, sadly, a million years ago. Mostly all of them were stamped promotional copy, not for sale, which was pretty cool. And then the CD things went the same way. I just saved the autographed ones. And but yeah, we had to make sure that there was product placement and that there was advertising to support it. So people would know about it. You had to get in your car or walk down the street and buy something. It was before there was a digital download. There was, and what killed our industry was Napster. and it was illegal, and it was, it was a train that we couldn't stop. It was something that all the people jumped on because, wow, free music. And it's also why you're paying $800 for a concert ticket now, because that's the only way that these artists are being compensated for their art. It's sad to me.
How did you end up in this area?
Well, when I lived in the D.C. area, I had grown up in the Boston area, and I would go to the beach all the time. It was 20 minutes away from where I was living. So you come here, and these are the closest beach communities to D.C., like everybody else, unless you want to swim in the bay. And so started coming down here. I have really good friends who live down here on Dewey Avenue that I met when I lived back there, and started coming down here frequently on weekends. And when I retired, this is where we were.
In one of the posts on your Lewes Facebook account, it states Lewes is more than a place, it's a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
How would you describe that feeling?
It's just magic. It's just magic being here. The people, the friendliness, again, it's a vortex. There is something so amazing here that draws people who are interesting and talented and want to make a difference in the world. And I think that that's really what makes it so special. I don't know. I really think it's a vortex. It's like going to Sedona. It's spiritual. I don't want to get too airy fairy here, but maybe that's what it is.
Final question.
Yes.
A friend of mine once said, when we were talking during COVID and all of us were being very morbid, he told me I should relax because, quite frankly, there was nothing I was going to do that was going to be of any value now that I had retired. I had had a good run. It's over. Just relax. I didn't necessarily take his advice, nor did you. And I think that, have you looked upon the sort of things you're doing today as just as exciting as some of the best things you did in your traditional working career? And so to call you retired is a misnomer, because I think in some ways do you find that your working career prepared you to do something that's
100%.
Very exciting.
100%. I spent a lot of time in the early years of my retirement trying to find things that would make me happy. Gardening. I'm not a gardener. And reading, which I love, and trying to play the piano badly, and things that I thought retired people are supposed to do. And I have realized that since I started this is I'm in the best time of my life right now. This is so amazing to me. And I have been prepared for all of this stuff, but I don't want it to stop now. I feel 40 years old again. I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but I feel like I got my mojo back, and I feel like the biggest thing for me is I want to make a difference. And I now I sort of have a purpose, and I feel like maybe that's happening. And it's been, again, it's part of the magic of being in Lewes.
Mac, thanks for joining us today, and a special thanks for all you are doing to celebrate the history of our town. It takes a lot of courage to take on an assignment like the 250 Committee, given how much has to be done, how many viewpoints must be accommodated, and all the presumptions and hard feelings that have to be navigated. I hope you're having as much fun as you're helping us to have.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Lewes is a special place filled with interesting people, many of whom have accomplished much in their lives. Lord knows we don't always agree, and as a community, we don't always get it right. But we do share a bond that hopefully is stronger than the sum of our disagreements, namely the affection we share for our community. Simply put, most of us like where we live. We have a new sponsor of the podcast that you'll be hearing more about in the coming months, Marlin Mind, a provider of signature apparel for passionate people. Fishing for marlin is a life mentality more than a sport. Given the risks, the danger involved, it's a commitment to do things the right way with dignity and to the best of your ability. The Marlin Mind logo is a classic, unique image of this amazing creature and a tribute to the hard work, perseverance, and teamwork required to fish them. For more about Marlin Mind and the products they provide, please visit their website at marlinmind.com. That's marlinmind, all one word, .com. They're different. Are you? Thanks to you for joining us today. It's winter here in Lewes right now. The wind is blowing and the ocean and bay can seem downright angry at times, but there's always a hint of what's coming. Some days it gets warm. Some days the sun actually comes out. And some days the rain eventually stops. Stores and restaurants are open, the downtown is alive, and remember, no matter how harsh it might seem outside, we're only weeks away from the opening of the Dairy Queen. Until next time, from our headquarters here in downtown Lewes, in the beautiful bar and restaurant at Kindle, this has been We in Lewes, the podcast. See you on the streets.